You are 34 years old. You are sitting in a conference room on the second floor of a building in a town most people drive through without stopping. The carpet is old. The chairs are solid wood. There are framed certificates on every wall. Across from you is a man named Gerald. Gerald is 63 years old. He has been running this bank since 1998. He built it from a single branch serving local farmers and small business owners into a 12-branch institution with $280 million in assets. He slides a folder across the table. You open it. One page. Net income last year, $2.3 million. Asking price, $18 million. He folds his hands on the table and says he wants it to stay in the community. He does not want it absorbed by one of the big four. He is not in a hurry. But he is 63, and his daughter lives in another state. You close the folder. You say you will think about it. You shake his hand. You drive home and sit in your car for 23 minutes in your own driveway, because you just looked at a bank. And it was smaller and quieter and more real than anything you imagined when you first heard the idea 8 months ago. If you want to understand how wealth is actually built, quietly, deliberately, and away from the noise, make sure you subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. 8 months ago, you were sitting at a dinner with a man you had met through a property deal that fell through. He told you something you had not heard before. He said, "I own a small bank in the South. Bought it 11 years ago. Best decision I ever made." You asked him why. He said, "Because the people who own the infrastructure are not playing the game. They are the game." You did not say anything. You filed it. You spent the next 6 weeks reading everything you could find. Not about banking in general. About community banks specifically. There are roughly 4,000 of them in the United States. Most of them have less than $1 billion in assets. Most of them are profitable. Most of them are owned by aging founders who built them from nothing across 30 or 40 years and now have no clear plan for what happens when they are no longer able to run them. Most people have never thought once about who owns a community bank. That was about to change for you. You learned how a bank makes money. The core of it is simple. The bank takes deposits from customers. It pays them interest to hold their money. 2%, maybe 2.5%. Then it lends that money to other customers. Mortgages, small business loans, car loans, equipment financing. It charges them a higher interest rate, 6%, 7%, sometimes more. The difference between what it pays depositors and what it earns from borrowers is called the net interest margin. On a loan portfolio of $100 million, a net interest margin of 3% generates $3 million in income per year. Before fees. Before anything else. $3 million. From a spread. Annually. Without selling a single product. On top of that, service charges, account fees, wire transfer fees, loan origination fees. Another $500,000 to $1 million per year for a bank this size. You wrote one thing in your notebook that night. Banks do not make money by being clever. They make money by being in the middle of every transaction that happens in a community. Month 3. You found an advisor who specialized in community bank acquisitions. Not a generalist. Someone who had done this specific thing 17 times. He told you something in the first call that you wrote down immediately. He said, "The bank is not the hard part. The regulators are. If you go into this thinking like an entrepreneur, you will get eaten alive." You asked him how long it takes, from the moment you sign a letter of intent to the moment the deal closes. He said, "Budget 9 to 18 months minimum. The actual negotiation takes weeks. The regulatory process takes the rest of that time." You sat with that. 9 to 18 months. The Federal Reserve. The FDIC, your state banking regulator. All reviewing simultaneously. All with their own timeline. You were going to have to stand very still and let them look at everything. Month 5. Your advisor sent you one opportunity. A bank in a mid-sized town 2 hours from where you grew up. 12 branches. 280 million in assets. The same families banking there for 3 generations. A loan portfolio spread across agriculture, small business, residential mortgages. Clean examination record for 11 consecutive years. Net income, $2.3 million. Asking price, $18 million. You did not tell anyone where you were going. You had found the bank through the FDIC database, a free government tool that lists every insured bank in the country, their assets, their income, their deposit base, their examination history, all of it public, all of it searchable. Most people have never opened it once. You had been inside it for 3 months. You drove to the town on a Tuesday. You did not walk into the bank that day. You drove through the town for 2 hours. You looked at the businesses on the main street. You counted the cars in the car park at 11 in the morning. You sat in a diner and listened to 3 separate conversations about nothing important. A town is a living thing, and the bank is its circulatory system. You were trying to understand whether the town had a pulse. It did. The meeting with Gerald happened 3 weeks later. Your advisor needed that time to arrange it properly. His office had a window that looked out over the town's main intersection. He had been watching that intersection from the same chair for 26 years. He knew every business that had opened, every one that had closed, every family that had built something, every one that had lost everything. He told you about a hardware store that the bank had kept alive with a restructured loan during the 2009 recession. That hardware store was still open, still paying, still sending Gerald a Christmas card every December. You asked him what he was afraid of. He said, "I am afraid someone will buy this bank and see only the numbers. And forget that the numbers come from people." You wrote nothing down in that meeting. You just listened. Month 6. The letter of intent was signed. You formed a bank holding company, a separate entity that would own the bank. Not you personally. The holding company. The Federal Reserve reviews holding company formations under the Bank Holding Company Act. They want to understand who is behind the structure, what their financial strength is, what they plan to do with the institution. You submitted everything: financial statements, business plan, character references, a detailed description of how you intended to operate the bank and serve the community. Everything transparent. Everything documented. Because with regulators, the mask is not the moat. Transparency is the moat. The fastest path through regulatory review is making it impossible for them to have a question you have not already answered. Month 7. The due diligence began in earnest. You hired a team. A lawyer who had done nothing but bank acquisitions for 19 years. A financial advisor who had valued 43 community banks. An operations consultant who had run a community bank for a decade before moving to advisory work. They went through everything. Every loan file, every deposit account category, every examination report from the last 10 years, every material contract, every employee agreement. The loan portfolio came back clean. Non-performing loans at 1.2% of total loans, well below the industry average. The deposit base came back better than clean. 83% of deposits had been at the bank for more than 5 years. That number stopped you. 83%. In an era where people switch banks the way they switch phone plans, 83% of this bank's depositors had been there for more than 5 years. Some of them for decades. You called your advisor. You said, "Tell me what that deposit retention number means in plain language." He said, "It means when you own this bank, the deposits do not leave when Gerald does. The relationships are with the institution, not with the individual." That was the moment you knew. Month 9. The Federal Reserve came back with questions. 41 of them. You and your legal team spent 3 weeks preparing the responses. Every question answered in full. Every supporting document attached. Every number sourced and verified. You did not rush. You did not try to be clever. You just answered every question completely and waited. Patience in a regulatory process is not passive. It is a strategy. Month 13. The Federal Reserve approved the holding company. The FDIC approved the transaction. The state banking regulator approved. You sat in a quiet room with your lawyer. Signed the documents. Paid $18 million through the holding company. Shook hands with Gerald. He handed you a set of keys. The keys to a bank. He looked at you for a moment before he left. He said, "Those people in this community trusted me with their money for 26 years. He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. You drove to the bank the next morning. You parked in the car park. You sat in your car. You looked at the main entrance. People were walking in, depositing money, making loan payments, talking to tellers they had known for 15 years. None of them knew ownership had changed hands. The bank was exactly the same as it was the day before. That was the point. Year 2. Net income, $2.6 million. Up from 2.3. Not because you dismantled anything. Because you hired a loan officer who had been underserved in his previous position and gave him the resources to do his job properly. Because you opened one new product, a small business line of credit designed for local contractors, something the big banks would not touch below a certain threshold. Because you left the management team alone and trusted what Gerald had built. The deposit base grew by 4%. The loan portfolio grew by 9%. The bank got slightly bigger, slightly more profitable, slightly more embedded in the community it had served for decades. You told no one what you owned. Your family thought you did something in finance. Your friends thought you worked for yourself. Both were true in the loosest sense. Year 3. A larger regional bank sent an acquisition offer. $44 million. You sat with it for 11 days. $44 million on an $18 million investment in 3 years. You did the maths. A 244% return in 36 months. You said no. Not because the number was wrong. Because you had been inside the institution long enough to understand something that does not appear in a valuation model. A community bank that is operating well is not just generating income. It is generating relationships, local economic stability, small business survival, family wealth building, generational trust. You cannot put that on a slide deck. But you can feel it when you walk through the lobby on a Tuesday morning and watch a young couple sign papers on their first mortgage at the same desk where their parents signed papers 22 years ago. You said no, and you called your advisor. And you told him to start looking for the next one. 6 months later, he sent you a folder. A town 4 hours north. 1 branch. $68 million in assets. A founder named Patricia, who was 71 and had been running the bank alone since her husband died in 2019. The bank made $400,000 in net income last year. The asking price was $4.2 million. You drove there on a Wednesday. You sat in the same kind of diner, listened to the same kind of conversations about nothing important. The town had a pulse. The meeting with Patricia happened the following week. She did not slide a folder across the table. She handed you a photograph. The opening day of the bank, 1987. Her and her husband standing outside, a hand-painted sign in the window, a crowd of maybe 30 people on the pavement. She said, "We were the first bank this town ever had." You did not say anything. You bought the bank 4 months later. 14 months of regulatory process. $4.2 million through the holding company. You left Patricia's branch manager in place. You left everything in place. You added 1 loan product for local small businesses. Within 18 months, the bank made $620,000 in net income, up from $400,000. Not because you were clever, because the town had been waiting for someone to pay attention. You are 37 years old now. You own 2 community banks. Combined assets, $640 million. Combined net income last year, $6.1 million. You drive a car that is 4 years old. You live in an apartment that is nice, but would not turn heads. Nobody at dinner asks about your work anymore, because your answers are always boring on purpose. Something in finance, something with small businesses, nothing interesting. But occasionally someone will say something. Someone will say, "I need a loan. The big banks will not look at me." And you will say, "There is a community bank on the north side of town. Go in and ask for the manager. Tell them what you need. Tell them about your business." The whole story, not just the numbers. And they will go. And sometimes the loan gets made, and the business grows, and the community gets slightly stronger, and you are sitting in a building 2 streets away. And nobody knows. And that is exactly the way you built it. If this changed how you see the financial system, subscribe to Marcus Finance and turn on your notification bell because you do not want to miss the next one. And if you watched all the way to this moment, do well to subscribe if you have not already. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Would you ever own a piece of a financial institution? I genuinely read every single one. I will see you there.